Hope you all can see me because I had a glitch coming on. So I see that we have 9 individuals. So I am glad that you guys were able to join. I hope that you can see. Can you see it? I see Miss Green. Good afternoon. Hi. So I'm sorry I'm late. I had technical issues. And so that is all on me. But welcome to Healthy and Holy Conversations. And so this, if anybody's ever participated in a healthy and holy conversation, today I wanted to talk about more so less burnout, but trying to have a life-work balance. And so I'm going to share my screen. If anybody has ever seen me do a healthy, holy conversation, put it in the chat. And if not, you are in for a treat. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm not going to delay us any further because we are 11 minutes in. So let me pull up what needs to come. And I hope you guys have had a great time so far. If you've been on all day, I know that you guys had a wonderful time with your first speaker. And I know that you guys are in for a treat for the rest of the days that are to come. So look forward to them. And I hope that I get to participate as well. All righty. I'm going to try this again. I have no time to pull my PowerPoint. You guys, this is funny. So I'll tell you what, pulling up PowerPoints and things like that. I practiced, I did that, and then here I am with my own glitch. But I found my glitch, and now you guys get to see the PowerPoint. So I'm going to bring it back in and share. All right, so can everybody see the screen and everybody see the first page? All right, y'all just type yes. In other trainings, people say hit 1. So, but type yes or hit 1, and that way I know that you guys can see it. All right. So I wanted to see, can we do an icebreaker and start out? Again, I am a licensed clinical social worker who also has her master's of divinity. So I like to merge clinical practice with biblical principle. That's the easiest way I can define what I do. And a lot of it is because the church, I don't know, I see my friend Dr. Brian Jones on, so I want to be kind. But sometimes we have issues with mental health issues in the church, and we don't like to talk about them. I don't know what that is, and I don't know why we don't, but we don't like them. They're very uncomfortable for us. And so what I like to do is bring it to the forefront so that we can talk about it. So as we move forward today, I wanted us to open up with an icebreaker. So this is a DBT interpersonal practice. And so what happens in interpersonal effectiveness is that we check our intraperson. So we first start out with ourselves, we go inward, and then whatever comes, we can present ourselves back to the community, back to a person, back to as soon as we check ourselves. So this is one of my favorite DBT practices. I think I've used this with probably every client, but it's one to talk about self-respect. And so I would like for you, if you have pen and paper, just to do this quickly, about 5 minutes since we're already behind. And I'm going to tell you how to do it in Margaret's terms. And so the DBT practice skill is called FAST. And so the F means to be fair to yourself and to others. So what that means is if you are going through anything right now, so for those of you who may be struggling, or for those of you who may, perfect example, forgiveness. So you think you need to forgive someone, you think there needs to be, y'all see the next word, apology. This is where you are fair. Being fair to yourself does not mean you give yourself a pass or you find a way to have excuse, but being fair is what's happening now. Is it something I would do for myself? And if I can do it for myself, could I do it for the other person? So if it's something to the tool, the thing of forgiveness. So could I forgive myself if I did it? And if I can forgive myself, then I should be able to be fair and forgive the other person. And so in that, you have a right to make a request. So what is that request if it's something that's blocking you from being fair. And then they also have a right to make a request so that you can move forward. So if you have pen and paper, or if you just want to think about what it looks like to be fair in whatever particular situation that you're dealing with, I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that, because situations are really quick. So you got those. Okay. If you're still thinking, that's okay, because we're going to move to the next one. The next letter is A, and it stands for apology. As we go through, you'll see no apologies. If you were fair in your practice to yourself in regards to respect for whatever the issue may have been, then you should not have any apologies. None. If, in fact, you did not show up fair, then of course you need to find a way to apologize. I invite people to apologize to themselves for shortchanging, maybe, or for not giving themselves enough credit in some cases, and then apologize for whatever has happened that is wrong. And so I'll give you about 30 seconds to think about that. And then the next one is stick to your values. So this is the one I want to spend a little bit of time on. I'm going to take a minute. So sometimes, especially in Black community, we don't get an opportunity to find those individual values. What I tell my clients are those things that we live by. Like, what's your deal breaker? What is the very thing that if you violated yourself, it would take you out? And so values are very important. Oftentimes we carry our family's values, we may carry our church's values, we may carry someone that we look up to, we may carry their values, but we often cannot answer that value question for ourselves. And so in this case, I would like for you guys to take this with you and think about those values. I normally offer for people to find those 5 spaces, those 5 values that they live by, and put them in front of them. Hold yourself accountable to them, so that you don't sell yourself short or sell out to yourself, so that at the top, you can come back and be fair in any situation, because it's going to line up with your values and the things that you live by. So, T, the last one is be truthful. And so in my practice, I normally say, trust the truth. And sometimes truth hurts. So don't exaggerate, no lies, no pretenses, and do not sit in the space of helplessness or hopelessness, just because the truth comes out. So I recently went through something that it was like really bad. And it literally, if I can give the example as we move forward, literally, I was not fair to myself or the other person involved at all. And so I had to go back and on a request I made of myself, on a request that the person made. And then I had to see where the apology lies. So I actually had to apologize to myself for selling myself short, because I didn't fall in line with my values. I did not stick with my values. I live by one value, like live by love. And I did not act in the space of love. It was very harmful. And so because of that, I had to apologize to myself and to the people involved. And then I had to just literally trust the truth or be truthful. Did I do what I did? Yes. So I didn't deny it, didn't fight it. But when that comes, it did hurt, because I couldn't believe I went against my own value. And so this, again, is something that you guys can take with you. You can practice it often, and it keeps you in a space of self-respect. And so our objectives today, I'm just going to go through them really quick. Today, you're going to learn about some traumatic spaces, but we're not going to dwell on that as we move forward. But you are going to learn about what it looks like to sit inside of a healthy, holy conversation. And once you walk away, you should have some form of understanding, awareness, and interpersonal effectiveness, which is what we just practiced. And you should have some way of regulating yourself, as well as having some level of distress tolerance. Once we are done, you should see how the theological can build on the theoretical. And it could be something that maybe you can take away. You can add it to your church practice. You can add it to clinical practice. If you're a clinician, you can add it to daily practice if you like to. And I'm going to do a shameless plug. You can invite me in and I can do it at the church. So let's proceed. So I do want to say this. I do want to say the difference between spirituality practice and religious assignment. And so looking at this, sometimes we merge religion and spirituality. And so we don't get a chance to understand and sit with our mind or sit with the totality of who we are. And because of that, we miss out on a lot. So spirituality is defined as distinguished from all other things. So I'm a humanist at heart. And so we look at humanistic values and how we connect to the sacred and transcendent. Religion, on the other hand, is institutional membership, could be dogma, beliefs. It could be ritualistic observance, ritual, which we may get lost in, which sometimes, again, steps us out of our values, steps us out of ourselves. All right. And so as we move, I would like for us to look at this from a lens of internal family systems and also from the 4 or 5 agreements. And so for some people who've read that, I would like to look at it from this perspective. So we are made of many members. You guys know the text, New Testament. And so in those member spaces, we have parts and we have stuff that just doesn't agree. And so when we did the fast practice, we watched how we had to align ourselves before we could even approach the person that maybe we needed to confront or maybe we needed to apologize to. And we need to see what part of us didn't align with our values, what part of us didn't align with that self that we have. And so if you look over, you'll see that it talks about managers and firefighters and exiles. So to break that down, your management system protects you. It's the thing that might show up that's the positive. So for some people, and I'm saying positive, but it could also be damaging. It could be out of balance. So for me, I am an overworker. I work all of the time. And that is definitely something that manages my life. But when I overwork and I don't take care of myself, then it isn't really protecting me. It thinks that it is, but it's causing me harm. And so firefighters, I normally break this down for the church as the thing that distracts you. And so for all of my church people, we know what has distracted us in COVID. I've got so many people in my office. It was either food or it was binging Netflix that threw us off, or it was spending too much time sleep because we didn't know how to deal with the weight of not being able to be social or go to church or be present or even receive a touch. And so we sat in that space of distraction and got lost. And then exile is the wounded part of us, that thing that those protectors at the top are really taken care of. And so if we do that and we sit with ourselves, we'll find a place to explore these areas and unburden them and release from them. And we can find ourselves sitting in a self-energy space, which are what you see in the center in the green. And so you might find yourself be calm or confident, playful, adventurous, but you are finding yourself to be aligned with self. And we do that with agreement. So make sure that when you speak, it's just what we practice, that your word is impeccable. Just say what you need to say. Don't take anything personal, which is what a lot of people have done in this season. And so I'm so thankful for this space that we can talk about it, sit with it, and look at it. Because some people took it personal that they didn't have like technology at their church, when literally, if we could ask each other, everybody could have been available for everybody. So don't make assumptions. Don't assume that people are just going to keep doing the same thing, or don't assume that everything's going to be okay. So always prepare for what you need to, and then always do your best. So I today came in nervous. I'll just be really honest, super nervous because I couldn't get on. But I'm going to give you the best that I have. And then at that time, either I could treat myself really hard, or I say, you know what, I gave my best. And I always strive to do my best. And then the other one is be skeptical and learn to listen, which is what we're going to talk about today in that space of managing our time, managing our space, and learning how to live in a space that's a life-work balance. All righty. So in order to start this process, we really need to be vulnerable, which again, we started out with FAST. It required you at the beginning to sit in the space of vulnerability. Vulnerability is needed for balance. Like in order for us to sit in our values and those things that we hold ourselves in balance with, then we have to be vulnerable. We have to show up, and we have to have courage, or we have to have heart. Also, in sitting in a space of balance, when we're looking at life-work balance, I'm not saying work-life balance, because often we put work in front of it. Again, I'm a workaholic, so I have to, and I'm offering it to you guys today to say what's in life that I probably need to take a break from work from and enjoy it. And so we also have to have spaces of self-compassion. Self-compassion looks like this in the sum up from Dr. Kristen Neff. First of all, self-kindness. So would you do what you're doing? Would you do it for yourself? So I often have to check myself about overworking. Like, would I allow somebody else to overwork? Probably not. I probably advise my clients, hey, maybe you need to take a vacation. And so when I get into that space, I literally will say, hey, I need to take about 3 days and go somewhere. So I can honestly say that in the last 7 months, I've probably been more places than I've been probably like 5 years. But I've had to give myself that permission so that I can go. The other one is recognize our common humanity. This is what I tell people. Take your slice of the pie. This is a shared human experience. So you can't live everybody else's life. And this is where it comes down to life-work balance. There's a lot of people that want to fix it. And it's preachers and ministers, and it's people who serve, and it's people who are sitting in a space of service. We often want to fix it, or we often want to go and make it happen. We often want to go and say, you know, I got it. But make sure you take care of your piece of the pie. Your piece of the pie has what you need to take. It's your nutrients, which can include pain, or if I want to be really churchy, it can include the fruit of the spirit. So it can go from joy to temperance, however it needs to be, but it's your piece of the pie. And if we can do that in our personal mini members, then we can see that across the board in church, in business, and we can watch how we build things together and act as a body. And so with that, it causes us to connect. And then the last one is being mindful, which we're going to spend some time on that today. And so I see this, and when I read the book and I studied it, the one thing I disagreed with was acknowledge our suffering without exaggerating it. And so often as African Americans and people of color, we acknowledge our suffering and we downplay it. We really don't know what to do with it. I can remember my grandmother saying, it's just how life is. And so you have to deal with it. Out of her grandchildren, I'm the darkest one. And so in my mind, I really wasn't that dark. I met people darker than me. But she taught me, she was like, you're going to just have to learn how to deal with that. My cousins are light and I was dark. I didn't understand what she was saying with that, but she underplayed her own life experience because her sisters were light. And she had a tough time because she was dark. And so in the case of mindfulness, being open to reality, but I always say this to African American people or BIPOC or people of color, whatever we're going to use today. And I say, acknowledge your suffering without downplaying it. It happened. It happened to you, and you have a right to acknowledge it. And so life-work balance. So it's 12:29. And so I was going to give you guys like 5 minutes. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes to define what is life for you. And then to define what is work for you. I ask this in sessions with a lot of my people who come to talk about balance. If you knew me, you would think that was hilarious, but they do. People find me. And I ask these 2 questions. And so I often find, especially for those who are in ministry, that they can't separate the 2. So got 2 minutes. And you'll see a text next to it. And it's the Message Bible with Margaret's statement at the end. And so rest is a whole gift from God. And so we should utilize it. It's not something that's lazy. It's not something that is paralyzing. It actually heals your body when you take enough rest. It actually puts you in a place where you can live your life and manage work. So about 2 minutes, you can write it down or you can do some internal processing about it. That's totally up to you. But think about what is life and what is work. And if you're brave enough, you can put your thoughts in the chat so everybody can see them. If you got that kind of brave moment. Can I make it larger? I will try to make that larger for you guys. Let me see if I can do that. Oh, no, pen. That should be, hopefully what I just clicked made it a little larger. Okay, you guys. So, about 30 more seconds. And nobody's brave enough to put what they found. It's okay. Using some courage today. So, well, I'll start it. And if somebody wants to come in and put it in the chat so people can see, it's just fine. But what is life? And so I really had to sit with this. And I used to use a definition that used the letters. And I used to say it's living in faith every day. And so I had to really come back and answer that, because it was some days I didn't live in faith, and there was some days that I was in panic or whatnot. I didn't know. And so I had to come back and ask that question again, like, what is life? And life is literally the totality of our humanity. When I got that, I was like, oh, wow. And so some of us downplay our humanity, especially in religious spaces, if you hear what I'm saying, because this thing can affect me. I think one of the things I cringe at when I go to church and my pastor laughs at me is when people say it's going to be all right. Because what we do is we downplay the person's life. They're telling you what's going on. They're telling you their needs. And instead we say, well, it'll be all right. But the person really could be saying, hey, I don't have any gas and my tire's flat outside. And we give them a pat on the back and say, oh, it's going to be all right. What they're saying is, can you help me change my tire? And can you give me $5 in gas? And so it might be something that we can help them with. Life is something that speaks out loud because it's the totality of our humanity. And so we live our life out loud. People can see us. Even if you're sitting in those moments of happy, those moments where you have it on your face, because we're connected, because we are designed for human connection, as Dr. Brene Brown says, and because we're designed to be vulnerable, it's actually healthy, and people can see our life, and we are designed to connect or take our piece of the pie. Then I had to define work. So for me, work was, I do it every day. But I had to come back and say, work is the thing that helps me sustain my life. And so I took that from a perspective of Genesis. So no, I'm not a man. And for those of you who might say what I'm about to say might be off, like Adam had to work. That's what it said in the text, right? In order for them to sustain life. And so work should be something that's causing, that has a cause and effect to it. I do it and it helps me to sustain the totality of my life. So it provides whatever I need. If it's money, or if I do something with bartering. I live in a rural area, so it's a lot of farmland, and a lot of people, like, they'll grow their own vegetables, or they literally like slaughter cows, pigs. But that's how they sustain, and they have like a farmer's market, and so they trade what they have for money. So work is literally to help me sustain. And as you go through, you can decide to answer those if you like. All righty. So how do we engage then this life-work balance? And so I took the ABC model because some of us have like activating events. Again, for me, activating event is literally work. Like, I'll go to work, and for me, like, work became life. I forgot about how not to work. I forgot to go have fun. I forgot to do things. And the belief is that I have to work in order to live, versus realizing that I live and work is a part of my totality of life. The consequences that burnout happened, I didn't really care. Burnout happened at church, burnout happened in my practice, burnout happened everywhere. So I didn't want to do anything. And so I had to dispute that belief, or I called it a disruptive gray space. Like, why am I not doing the very things that I love? And I had to figure that out. And so in that, I had to challenge the belief that I had to work to live. And so I created a new belief. And that new belief was, no, I live and work is a part of my life. And so with that, the activating event again for me was work. And then my belief changed, and my consequence is every quarter now, I try to go do something, and I don't take my laptop. I take my phone because I have to, because I got to talk to people, but I try not to take stuff that's going to distract me from being in a space that's healthy, so that I can take care of my members, or those places we talked about earlier. And so the text is Matthew 18, 15 through 18. And I'll break it down in Margaret's terms. This invites us to approach someone. In some cases, when I've taught this before, I invited people to approach themselves from that internal family standpoint. What does it look like when another member, including something against yourself, has found fault? What does it look like when we don't sit in our values? And what does it look like if we do have to approach another person and do external work? So we approach them. We don't beat them up. We approach them. We try to talk about it. If they don't listen, then we take it somewhere else. For me, I have a community of loved ones that I call the peanut gallery. And so when I can't see myself, when I'm in conflict with myself, then they for sure let me know what they see, because again, your life shines. People can see it. And then if I don't listen to them, I promise you, the whole world can see it. And so it takes that with the rules of engagement. And that is how we engage life. That is how we engage ourselves. And that is how we engage others. All righty. So here's that awareness spot that I was talking about. Because we have a lot of private logic. Like, it will murder us. It will take us out. Because we speak ill over ourselves. This has a lot to do when we don't have a good life-work balance, because we'll sit in spaces of work. And so work doesn't always equal money, especially if you're a minister. You absolutely know you can work in the church, might not get acknowledged, but work can also be our planning spaces. Work can also be those things that we are challenged to do, and we start to have what is called private logic or negative thought. Like, I can't do that. I can't make that happen. Why would you pick me? And so we start to sit in a space that's bad. And our filter from that, we start to speak words against ourselves, and then we start to speak words against other people. And so we lack those spaces as you see them go up. We start to lack that empathy and compassion. And so therefore, we don't make the right choice if we sit in a bad filter, and then our intentions are off. And so our judgment are the thing that we are able to see, that awareness, that mindfulness normally isn't used properly to filter. So how do we do that? We check the negativity in our own mind so that we don't go out and see ourselves negative. I'm really, really big on trying not to speak negative about people, because I always have to go internal and say, well, if I can see the negativity on them in their life, then what is it about me that's negative? And so, because again, I live by my values. So what am I not standing up to? What am I not being fair about? What is the thing that's not showing up for me that I need to take care of? And I started to check my mind. And so we have to sit in spaces of awareness in order to find that balance between life and work. And so work in this case may be parenting, or life in this case for you may be the totality of life right now is that you might actually be a caretaker. So that is included. And so are you caretaking for yourself as well? And so the first thought that comes to mind, if you have negative thoughts sitting, or you have private logic that's just sitting on top, it's going to filter out bad. But if you check that, then it'll filter through, and you will find what you need in order to stay in that space of awareness. All right, so life and work and live. So I don't know. I tried to make myself sound like Pray Tell. I don't know how many people watch Pose. I hate that it went off. It's one of my favorite shows. But we literally are designed to live. We're supposed to have life and have it more abundantly. And so when we don't take time to balance, and we don't take time to find it, then we find ourselves overworked. We find ourselves sitting in spaces where sometimes I've seen people, they just don't know what to do because they're so tired they can't even go to sleep. Like, they don't even know what sleep looks like, and they don't even know what rest looks like. And again, rest is a whole gift from God. So, and that is what the Bible says. But they don't even know how to do that because they have made it where work has become their primary thing versus living their life. And so I have some statements here that can help you with living. So first, be in your human experience. Some of us try to avoid it. And that's why I did the fast exercise at first. Like, we just don't want to talk about the truth. So in human experience, we have ebb and flow. We're going to meet people with the unmitigated gall to try to come and take us out. And we're going to meet people that want to lift us up and lift us higher than we can ever be. But at the end of the day, we're going to live our human experience. We are designed to live. We are made in the image of God. It's Imago Dei. So we are designed to live. We are designed to breathe out life. We are designed to be present for that. So be in your human experience. Yes, it may hit hard times, but it's the human experience, ebb and flow. And at the end of the day, it should, if the Bible is true, all work out for the good of those. So y'all can finish that out. Then set manageable goals each day. And so for some of my clients and myself, sometimes when I get to it, I have one goal each day. If I finish that goal, I feel like my whole day has been conquered. I have won everything. I've done everything. In my private logic, that negativity of, Margaret, you can't get that done, actually literally goes away. And it's like, Margaret, but you did that one goal that was in front of you. Knocked it out. Promise. Wonderful day. I go live my life. Then if you can't, give yourself grace. Grace shows up in many forms, but at the end of the day, grace is that thing that covers us. Grace is that thing that reminds us that, guess what? We have opportunities and chances, and we can do it again. Grace is the very thing that allowed me to be 11 minutes late because I couldn't get my thing to sign on. And so you guys gave me grace. But give yourself grace so that you can enjoy your life and live. Allow your many members to breathe. Some of us have not even just the worker bee part, but the nitpick part. And this is me being truthful, like that. I got to find this one thing, but allow that part to breathe. So you can't find it. That gives you permission to ask for help. Guess what that does? It connects you with other spaces of humanity, and you get to enjoy the human experience with someone else. And then become attuned with your needs. What do you need? This is a very hard clinical question that we ask people often. When we say, what do you need? And they literally will list what their mother needs, what their daughter needs, what the cat and the dog needs, and they will not say it for themselves. Why? Because they haven't taken the time to get to know their life, to sit with their many members of themselves internally, and to get to say what they need. Often in Black community, we find that we don't get to say our needs. I'll even bring it up. So what I've heard throughout practice in the last 7 months is about our Asian brothers and sisters actually getting a law passed to protect them, but we can't. But we don't sit with our needs as a community. We have so many needs, though, and that's a trauma space. We have so many needs that we want to bring them all in, and we don't know how to organize them. So what would it look like if I became attuned with my own needs, and then I brought that back to the community, and the community itself could be attuned with its needs? Then we can start to change some stuff. And then communicate honestly, openly, and transparently. Have hot communication. Hot communication is very effective. When we don't have hot communication, we often miss the moment, and then we do not have effective communication. We don't make change, and it looks like a fight. And so I offer to you hot communication today. So in some cases, you'll hear parents tell children, use your words, but use them effectively. And then give yourself a break. You are human. Once you can acknowledge that, guess what? You live your life. One of my favorite scriptures is, I say Jesus went on a vacation, and the lady was hiding, and she couldn't wait to see him get in the house. And she said, my child needs healing. And Jesus calls her a dog, right? But go back and read the text. It said he stole away for rest. Like, he was on vacation. So give yourself a break. Even Jesus recognized that he was human. So live your human experience and be grateful about it. All righty. So rules of self-engagement. I've alluded to them through this whole presentation. And so with that being said, we have to actualize those spaces so that we can do self-engagement. And we are offered this by sitting in a space of understanding our own reality. And so this, what you see, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so most of us, probably everybody on this call, maybe we're fortunate, and maybe some of us may not, sit in a space of having our physiological needs or base needs met. But then we move to the space of safety. This is where that healthy and holy conversation starts to move. And we start to ask ourselves, are we safe? There are 4 areas of safety that I focus on and practice, and they all have to do with the totality of who we are. And so, are we physically safe? And that's a question that I ask. Then we move forward. And so, am I emotionally safe? Like, am I balanced in my emotions? And if I am not, do I know how to get to the place that can ground me? And then we move to, am I socially safe? Am I in a space where I know that I can manage it? That's a really great question for all of my introverts that I see, because they say, well, most people don't ask me about my battery, because when they are overloaded or overextended, they no longer feel socially safe. And so they're trying to find spaces where they can ground. And then the other one, am I spiritually safe? That's huge in the world today, especially for what we see and how we find the abuse of religion that hits us in our spiritual spaces. And so checking all of those spaces, we see where we belong and how love can move. And so we find those ways through those spaces, how to belong. So do I belong here in this social space? Do I belong here in this emotional space? Do I belong here physically? And do I belong here spiritually? And once we move through that sense of connection and love, then we go to esteem. So a lot of people think about self-esteem and they think like, well, I know I look good, I know I'm cute. But I like how Dr. Joy DeGruy defines it. She says esteem is how I hold myself in regard. How do I see myself? And that all falls back into those values that I introduced you to at the beginning. How am I respecting myself so that I can actualize myself and transcend into my next? And so how do we engage ourselves? We notice the reality of our situation. It sounds familiar, right? So we are fair. And then we're unapologetic for who we are. Shouldn't be any apologies for who you are. If you show up as yourself, it's beautiful. And then we live out our values. What are those things that you hold yourself accountable to? We embrace all of who we are. There are pieces of me I don't like, but you know what? I embrace it. And I say, why don't I like you? And so I go through and say, well, maybe it's just something I didn't like because somebody else said something about it. And so I try to sit there in the space of embracing myself. And then self-assurance versus self-actualization. And so self-assurance is I assure myself that I'm good. I build myself up. But can I take that thing that I'm talking to and pumping up? And actually, is it myself that I want to transcend into community? Or I want to put back into the community after maybe a moment of being wounded or a moment of not being present? And really thinking about that, especially in, I don't want to call it pre-COVID, but after, I don't know what to call it, but since we're in this season, that's what I call it, this season of COVID, that's really important to see how to engage myself and how to engage community. So, yeah, we have a few moments, and I want to invite us to do at least one activity. And I have some things that you guys get to take home. I'm going to find out how to get them out to you all because they're actually something that I can send. And so I'm going to share them with you. Now stop sharing the screen for a moment. And you guys, if you have any questions, you can put them up now and I can answer. And I'm thinking that there's going to be time for me to answer questions, I think, after, if you guys still would like to talk. All right. I know that it's small. Somebody said it was small, so I'm going to see, can I make it larger? I don't know if I can. I'm going to try. And, okay. Can everyone still see that? I'm hoping that you can. Okay. So, and I promise I'm going to get this stuff out to you guys. So I offered all of that to say that this is how you can kind of do, you can sit in a space that's healthy and holy on your own. And so it's kind of like a self map or an actualization map, transcendent map. And so what we do is we look at those values. Values for us are really important. And I'm not asking you to like kill like family tradition or ritual. Ritual is so important for our community. Like we need it. That's the thing that keeps us connected. But when we just sit in spaces of ritual and we don't even know why we do it, that is when we may not be sitting in our values. So I think most people end up telling the story of the guy who cut off like the back of the ham and then come to find out it wasn't anything significant that made it taste any different. But it's because in World War II, the pans that they made were too small for the hams. And so that's a tradition that they did. I like to tell the tradition that we do in my family. So we like double our sheets. So nobody in my family knew why we did that. And one day we just asked my grandmother and she was like, oh, well, I mean, I doubled the sheets because I had 2 boys. Y'all can figure that out after. So mind you, she had 4 granddaughters and 1 grandson. And so we were laughing because I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. So she wanted to protect her mattresses. And so, but we doubled them up because we thought like, oh, that's a big deal to double up sheets. And so, and it kind of felt nice too, because my grandmother had like really plush, like nice, I don't know, with 1,000 cotton, with 1,000 Egyptian cotton, whatever, that stuff. But it was really comfortable. So, but when we found out, we all laughed because it really didn't. The only reason she did it is because she had 2 boys. And so what do boys do when they're little? So y'all can figure that out. And so I want to teach you guys about this. And hopefully they will tell me how to get it to you guys in email. But this is a map. So we start out with our values. You can start out with 1, but you put the value inside of the bubble that's connected. This is you. So I had to put me because some people, like I said, we don't know our values. We will say the church's values. We will say I used to say my grandmother's values all the time, and I realized some of the stuff she valued didn't have anything to do with me. And so me and my values are really important. So once we have those, we start to take those values and say, are my base needs met around the value? Like if I love, am I able to see my love or able to see my value and my needs being met? So truthfully, at one point in life, if love was my value, then there was a base need of me connecting with humans that I didn't have. Very isolated. And so testimony for me is that I had to take that value and say, well, what does love do? Love connects. And so it pushed me to start connecting. And then from there, you see the line, the thicker line moves to safety. And those 4 areas of safety that I talked about. Is the value able to be taken care of in the spaces of safety? And so from there, we move to that belonging space, which is going to ask you again about physically belonging, spiritually belonging, emotionally belonging, socially belonging in that value. So if I had to do it with love, do I belong here? And am I able to operate in my value of love? And then moving to esteem, am I able to hold myself in regard to my value of love? If I am, this space is a space that I can transcend into a community. And so how do I transcend to influence? Like, how do I take Margaret? How do I take me again and put Margaret into those spaces? If you notice, work isn't bigger than my spiritual community, than my personal growth, than my family. But I am the biggest space there because my life and the totality of my life is how I want to live. And that is what transcends into all the spaces that we touch. So that is one. And then there's another one, but I'll make sure you guys get it. And it's all about our thought process. Again, I talked a lot about that awareness space. And so whatsoever it is, we need to think on it. And so that anxiousness that we talk about in Philippians 4, I've had like 5 preachers come in my office, and I've taught this several places, and they're like, you always teach that wrong. It says be anxious for nothing. And I said, but it says a comma. And so it gives us what to do. So what I did in this worksheet is break that comma space down. And so what is that anxiety connected to? What's causing us to hold on to it? Because the scripture says with all prayer and supplication, we should give that to God. And then what are your affirmations or prayers about it? Like, are you praying to hold on to it by accident? You don't realize that's what the prayer is. Or are you doing it with prayer and supplication, giving it away? And if so, it invites us to fix our thoughts on particular spaces. So is it true? Y'all probably got tired of hearing true today, right? Does it bring honor out of the situation? And then what shows love in the situation? And is it praiseworthy? And do you find a sense of peace because it offers us peace that surpasses understanding in that text. And if so, then we come and we flip it. And so we saw the negative, right? So we come and we change our thought. And so now what is your affirmation after you've given that anxiety away? What brings you joy? Because the text offers that we have joy, and then again, we rejoice. And then what causes you to focus in on that joy? And then I invite you to think about that, do some mindfulness work, and then see, can you write it out? Or can you put the images down to see what you saw that allows you to move from a negative space into a positive space? So I'm going to see, can we get those out? I want to offer time for you guys to ask questions. And I will answer them the best way I can. And so let me go through and see. I'm trying to cut the screen. All righty. So I'm going to go back through. And thank you guys for showing up, everybody. And I see my friend. It needs to be a full conference in itself. Thank you, Dr. Jones. And so Calvin Baldwin, thank you for this question. Why do you think that many leaders don't embrace your approach? Well, I used to say about 10 years ago when I started working on this, they didn't, because guess what? It made them call themselves out. And then they had to ask, were they being fair to themselves? A lot of leaders like the overwork, because again, work-life balance tells me, I need to make sure work is dominant and then my life comes after. I ask them to look at it differently. So put yourself first, like actually take your 2-week vacation that the church may offer. I actually tell your church, hey, I'm leaving, and that's why I have an associate minister that's going to preach. Trust it, because this is a church community. And so a lot of leaders didn't want to take that approach because it would take, or they would feel like it would usurp whatever power that came through their work or through that space. And so now I have a lot of ministers that actually approach it and they like it. They're like, oh my God, this gave me a break. And it allows them to look at their humanity versus looking at life through their title. So, yeah, so hopefully other ministers that may have watched this today may want to learn more about it. Let's see. Thank you, Carmen. This is so key for leaders and parents within the church setting to have strong understanding of self and their values. It really is, especially for our youth, because they watch us. We model for them. Our life looks like that, right? So they start to copy and be like us. Very, very, very important. And Miss Megan, yes, I am curious about what you would recommend in terms of how to really get in touch with our authentic values rather than overly influenced values of others. And so I offer this that really takes that state of sitting with yourself and being honest. And so the conversation of hot communication starts with us, honest, open, and transparent. If it happened, it happened. And a lot of people don't like that, but if it happened, it happened. And it's a fact. So it isn't you overstating. That happened. And when we can sit with that, then we can start to flesh out and see our value, see ourselves, and see how we need to sit. Honestly, I think social workers probably have more issues with this than anybody I've ever worked with, because we want to take care of everybody, right, by nature. And so ministers do the same thing. Those who are heavy in church do the same thing. But what does it look like when you honor that value of, maybe you have a value of aesthetic, and the reason you have it is because you're over pulpit ministry, so it has to look right, right? So you get with that and you know why you like how things look and you own it. It's beautiful. But that is how you would start. And Megan, we probably chat more. I will put my email in the chat as well. You guys, this is probably the best way to contact me because I am always on the go. But that is probably the fastest way you can contact me. It comes to my phone directly to me. And so I'll take that, LaVon. I'm not a doctor yet, but speak over my life. So I'll take it. And so that says a lot. I probably need to go make that happen. Are you available for a small private group of healthy and holy conversations? I am. And so I've done this with a larger group, smaller group. I've even done this individually with particular individuals who wanted to do it individually. And so, again, you can actually contact me at that email address. It comes directly to me, and I will get back with you about how to set that up. And so my time is up. You guys have a whole nother presentation to go to. So I appreciate you, love you, and thank you for joining me today for your midday mental health break. I appreciate you all. You guys have a wonderful day and enjoy the conference. And Brian, go on that vacation, sir, Mr. Smith. Enjoy your vacation. Get it while before airplane tickets go all the way back up. So y'all enjoy and have a wonderful day.